Good afternoon from Real Builds. Well, as you can see, we got the back of the truck pulled into the garage. The whole thing won't fit. We were going to pull the gas tank today, but we've run into some trouble. My 11-year-old removed the gas cap door, undid the screws from the top. We took the bottom hose, had to cut it to get it off. It's a 30-year-old truck, but make sure you save it because you got to get a hose the same diameter. Removed the clamps. Let us pull this piece out, which is your fuel filler neck. And you'll see we've been sanding it down to check for any rust through or any leakage. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. Inside is a breather hose. And this was really badly kinked at this end from the factory. And this tank was always hard to fill up. Now we know why. So we'll be fixing that while we're at it. Now the problem we've run into is underneath the truck, the gas tank is mounted right under here. And it's only held up with 4 bolts. But the bolts have been in there 32 years. And they're not wanting to come out. So using our toolkit as I described and not cheating, I've run out of options. I'm going to have to take the truck into a shop, have somebody with an impact and lots of pressure undo those 4 bolts. Now I'll be able to put it back in, but I can't get it out. So we're this far, everything from the rear tank's disconnected, and it's ready to drop. Now even before you start working on this, you need to make sure the gas tank is empty and has been for a while. Otherwise, you could be spilling fuel, you've got vapors. You want to make sure it's bone dry, aired out, and safe to handle. This is another one of those chores that if you're not comfortable doing it, even though it's not technically difficult, you might want to look at having somebody else do it. But then again, if you got the manual, you make sure there's no fuel in the tank, make sure it's drained and aired out. The rest of it's pretty nut and bolt friendly, and unless you're working on a 32-year-old truck, usually the bolts come undone pretty easy. So we're going to leave you for now while we get those bolts undone. Then we'll have the tank out and we'll show you the rest of the pieces and show you how to put it back together. Thanks again from Real Builds. Okay, so we just got the truck back from getting the gas tank pulled, because remember we tried to do it by hand and it wasn't happening, so we needed an impact. And seeing as we don't have an impact in our basic toolkit, she had to go to the shop. So $100 later, we've got the truck back with the rear tank out. It's a good thing we disconnected everything first. Taking the tank out, first we unhooked the fuel filler neck, this piece from both the box and the bottom, took it out, had to cut the hose to do it. Then we took out this from inside the tank, goes through here. Fuel door came off with it. And then once the tank was out, we took out the tank vent, of course the gas cap, and some other odds and sods, and the tank itself. Now, we still have to remove this, which is the fuel tank sending unit. So we'll do that in just a moment. But everything here we're going to reuse. We've run into a problem on our fuel tank. I wanted to have a brand new one, had one all lined up. It's gone, so now we have to get this one fixed. And the rest of this stuff needs cleaned up, painted, so that everything's in good shape as it goes back together. No point in doing half a job. On this side are the parts we're not going to reuse. We need a new fuel neck filler hose, so we're going to take the old one into the auto parts store to find the right piece and get a right length. We need some of this stuff, which is a padding that goes up here on the tank and underneath to keep the rails from hurting the tank. Okay, and that's these things that hold the fuel tank up and in place. So padding for the top, padding for the bottom. These have to be cleaned up and painted, as does the fuel filler neck. We're also going to replace the hose clamps. No point in reusing them. And these bolts were the ones holding the fuel tank in right through these holes. And they're about done. 30-some years, and they're kind of tired, and they were just mangled coming off. So we'll be buying a new fuel tank, or getting this one repaired. We're going to be buying a new fuel neck filler hose. We're going to be buying the padding to put on the top and bottom of the tank where it's held in place by the straps to protect the tank. And we're going to be getting new hose clamps, nuts and bolts. what we're going to do on this side is clean these up with sandpaper and a wire brush, clean this up with sandpaper and a wire brush, and paint them so that they're going to last. We're going to clean up our fuel tank vent, and we're going to straighten this out. This is the hose that goes up the neck of the tank like so, that allows air to get in when you're filling the tank. Now this one always worked slowly, drove me nuts. Turned out what it was when it was originally installed, this was kinked. So that meant filling the tank was slow. So we're going to fix that while we're at it. And it goes in again just like that. And we'll be able to fill the tank at a reasonable speed again. So that's where we're at. Right now we're going to take out the fuel tank sending unit. And you don't need a lot to do that. So we'll visit our toolkit. Need a good screwdriver and a hammer. These are held in by the ring around the top, and the ring holds it all together. So what we need to do is just get in there and tap it out. And of course 35 years in there, it's going to want a little more tapping than we like. So we're going to deal with this and tapping this piece out of the fuel tank, and then we'll be back with you and real builds. Remember, patience is the key. So starting off on this one, the first thing I'm going to do, seeing as it's super tight, is to hit it with penetrating oil and leave it for a little bit. Then we'll come back on real builds. Welcome back to Real Builds. Now we're getting ready to do a little paint work on the pieces for the gas tank. And we've sanded them down, wire brushed them, got them rid of all the loose material, and got them ready to take some paint. Now we're not doing body shop quality work here. We're doing basically protective work. We're making sure that when we put these back on, they're going to last a good long time without getting any more rust on them. So we're using a rust paint. Now, do yourself a favor, most of these don't require any kind of masking. But you see here on the gas tank sending unit, we've masked off the electrical connections, because the last thing you want to do is put everything back together, plug it in, and the gas tank sending unit doesn't work. So we're taking care of that early and not getting it dirty. So in just a second we're going to start spraying a little bit of paint and showing just the way you need to do the protective coat of paint. Now, be sure to follow the directions on the manufacturer's directions on the can. You want to make sure that the paint's going to go on smoothly and look reasonably good. And this will give you some practice for the other work we're going to be doing on the body. So start off with just a nice light coat. Nice and smooth. Like that. First on one side, then on the other. Make sure you get full coverage. Now what this does is, it's going to give a nice working surface when we're putting it back together. It's also going to keep rust from reforming very quickly on the parts. So they'll last a lot longer. Now here, as I said, now you can see why we masked it, so that we don't wind up with poor electrical connections. And here we just give it a nice light coat to begin with. Now by the time we finish painting all the pieces, the first piece will be ready for a second coat. And again, we're not going for show car quality, we're just going to make sure that everything's protected. And besides, when you look underneath, you'll be able to admire your work. If you're going to do a job, you might as well do it right. Now we're back to the first piece. It'll be just tacky enough to be ready to accept the second coat. Make sure you keep that can well shaken up. Now this coat should be a little heavier because it's got a base to stick to. And make sure everything is covered. And as I said, this is good practice for when we get going back into doing some of the body preparation and repairs that we're going to need to do on our project. And this is the place to learn it, because if you make a small error, it's not a big deal. Everything's hidden underneath. And nobody will be able to see where we made a mess. Make sure you get the sides, inside the bolt holes. You get it all so that it'll stand up to the test of time. After all, if the first one survived 35 years, or 32 years, let's make sure this one's going to go just as long. And one last quick coat. Making sure we've gotten all the edges. There we go. So a few minutes preparation, getting the dust off, getting the dirt and loose grime off, giving it a quick sand, makes a heck of a difference in the way it's going to look once everything's reinstalled and in how it's going to last for you. So we're going to leave this stuff dry. We're going to leave it overnight. And the fuel tank will be here in a day or two, just in time for the next weekend. And we'll keep going on our project here at Real Builds with the Ford F-150. Thanks for joining us.